All right, do I look the part? Where'd my fishing pole go? There it is. Yes. Look at that. That's right. Be jealous. I look ridiculous, and you don't. Why am I telling you this? Well, if you look up on the screen, you will see an actual location. That location is on the Allegheny River, up by New Ken, sorta. There's a little cove kind of back off the river, and it's got some weeds in it. My buddy Jim Graham, anybody here know Jim Graham? My buddy, one person, all right. My buddy Jim Graham, he's a big fisherman. He's got a really nice boat. And so he was like, dude, go fishing with me. And I didn't really know what I was doing yet. And so I get on his boat, and we go. And he's like teaching me. And so we pull up, and as you can see, there's a bunch of weeds, right? And he's like, look, dude, you can't cast anything into those weeds. If you do, you're going to get snagged. He was like, and so you're going to want, and just as he said that, I saw something flash out of the corner of my eye in the weeds. And sure enough, it was a huge bass. And I didn't hear anything else he said because I was staring at it. Jim, did you see the fish? He was like, yeah, I saw it, dude. He's like, you want to go get it? I was like, yeah, I want to get it. He was like, all right, let me teach you how. So he pulls out this little frog bait. It's this little rubber thing, and you can see the hooks in it. And he was like, you're going to want to use this, and you're going to want to cast it up near the bank, and then you're going to want to just kind of jig it through the woods, like just kind of make it look like it's hopping or swimming through the woods. And so my first cast, I'm like, whew, and it lands on the bank, and it gets all snagged up. So I'm like, and like I pull it finally, and it comes flying back. It almost hits Jim in the face, which would have been kind of awesome. You just got to know Jim. So second cast, whew, pop, right where the water meets the shore. And he's like, all right, nice cast. Just let it sit. I'm like, okay. So I'm just watching. I'm waiting. And I don't see the fish. And he's like, all right, give it a little tug. So, whoop, whoop, and it looks like a little frog swimming through the water. Like the legs on the bait look real. And I'm like, dude, this is so cool. So I'm pulling it, and he's like, slow down. So I slow down, and just as I give it a little tug, sure enough, there's this splash on the surface. And this bass goes, wham! And he hits my bait, and he's like, get it! So I'm like, whoa! And I'm pulling, and he's like, dude, you got it! Reel it in! And like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never caught a real fish. I've caught like a bunch of like bluegill, but I've never caught a huge bass before. And so he's like, keep your tip up! And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And so I'm like this, and he's like, get it up! So I'm like, ah! And like, just, and it's fighting. It's like on a TV show, and it's so exhilarating, I don't even know what to do with myself. Finally, we get it up to the boat. I'm not going to hit you, I promise. I'll put it down. And I actually caught, it was over 5 pounds. Here's a picture of it. That was my fish. I know! I was so excited. Like, oh, man. Like, I mean, I'm used to, like, putting my hand inside the mouth of a bluegill where you're, like, pinching his lip and you can barely get your fingers in there. I'm like, what's up, fish? It was awesome. Like, I don't know how to say it. Any other, we went fishing, like, almost every day because I'd call him and I'd be like, dude, can we go fishing? Because it's just so much fun. And, like, so he taught me there's different baits. So there's something called a crankbait that you cast it and it lands, like, kind of on the rocks right by a shore. And if there's a ledge, you like reel it in real fast and it drops down and it looks like it's swimming and it has a lip and it just ticks the bass off and they hit it and then you catch them. So awesome. And he taught me how to do a Texas rig and a wacky rig and all these other fishing things, for lack of a better term. That's for bass. Anybody got a fly on them in here? Kathy, come up front, please. All right. So if you look at Kathy's, obviously you see all the leaders. Well, we were all wearing fishing vests, but Francis took his little kid one off. Did you guys see Francis's vest he had on? It was ridiculous. So, will you pull one of those off for me, please? Not if you're careful. Nope. All right, so with bass, you want big old hooks, right? Because you want a big old fish. I've learned that when you go fly fishing for trout, you use something called a fly. Now, as you can see, flies are tiny. As you can see, there's lots of different ways to make them. It's super cool, right? There's like old men that sit around and just make flies and they sell them for lots of money. These are crazy expensive. And different flies used at the right time, in the right place, during the right weather, in the right stream conditions, with the right color of the water, can catch you a monster fish. I've been told. I've caught one in my life. Colton, do you fish? All right, you were kind of like nodding along like you knew what I was saying. Here's the thing. I don't have video of me catching a fish, but there is about 3 minutes of the most epic fishing out there. It was on YouTube. It's from one of my favorite movies. It's an old man movie called A River Runs Through It. But ladies, it's a little something to look at because it's Brad Pitt. So sit back and enjoy 2.5 of the best fishing minutes on YouTube. The right bait at the right time can catch anything, I'm told, in the hands of a good fisherman. I am not a good fisherman. I'm still learning. And I think it was Viv. Were you the one that you were like, are we talking about being fishers of men tonight? Was that you? All right. Because, yeah, we're all wearing fishing vests and we're talking about lures and all that. No, we're not talking about being fishers of men. We're talking about the opposite. Welcome back to the book of James that we started last week. In James chapter 1, verse 14, it says this: temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. What does that have to do with fishing? Well, if you take a look at this verse in the original language, in the Greek, you'll see that all the words used here are fishing terms. You see, that culture, they understood fishing. They did. It's just what they did. It was a big part of their lives. The word entice is the exact same way that we talk about bait. Guys, you have to draw a fish out. You have to drop something in front of them that makes them want to go after it and take it. Do you know how many times I've had a fish swim up to my lure, take a look at it, and be like, no. And they swim away. Drives me nuts. Temptation is a lure that is trying to catch you. In fact, temptation doesn't want to just catch you. It wants to reel you in, and it wants to kill you. That's not very nice. Well, you know, we've already killed people tonight in youth group, so why not keep talking about it? Guys, tonight we're going to look at this whole word desire and what it means when it comes to temptation and how it works. So, with that being said, I need 5 volunteers. I don't care who. Taylor, Gracie, 1, 2, 3. All right, come on up. 5 people, come on up front. Perfect. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to actually name some of these desires and some of the actions that come from them. So we're going to start with, yes, Taylor. Awesome. We are going to call Taylor Anger. Everybody say hi to Anger. Hey, Anger. How are you? Good. So here's nice. All right. We all experience anger. Tell me some of the desires that come when you're angry. What do you desire to do when you're angry? Cuss? Oh my gosh, are you even a Christian? I'm just kidding. I know. Me too, totally. I'm kidding, Ava. Sorry. Yeah, cuss. How many of you guys are tempted to cuss when you're mad? I'm not saying you do. Yeah, see, you're in good company. Me too. All right, what else? You're mad. Hit something. Yes. What else? Gabby, stand up real quick. Hey, Viv, show us what that looks like. Okay. Viv wants to grab you by the neck and shake you. That's scary. Okay. Don't make Vivian angry. Anything else? What? You're angry. What's your desire? Scream. All right. How many of you guys scream when you're mad? All right. How many of you scream just by yourself? You ever do that? Oh, I'm so mad. How many of you scream at people? Anybody? Does that go well for you? No. Okay. Jay, have you ever screamed at someone? Yeah, Jay's highs are about here and his lows are about here. He just kind of goes through life. It's nice. How many of you guys are kind of like this? You don't really get too mad or too happy? You just chill? Oh, no, she... Yeah. Kara falls off a cliff. So, okay. Thank you, anger. You can have a seat. All right. So, we struggle with anger. Let's talk about this word. Gracie, come on up front. Aw, Gracie's so pretty. Ladies, how many of you compare yourself to her and wish you were her? It's not fair, is it? I know. And have you heard the girl play guitar and sing? It's not even fair how talented she is. What happens when we start to compare ourselves to other people? What desires? Yes, we hate ourselves. What desires do you feel when you see someone that's prettier, better than you? Any desires? You just want to drop kick them? Anyone? We do it though, right? We have desires, and sometimes those desires lead us to comparison. So that's another one I wanted to highlight tonight. Thank you, Little Miss Perfect. You can sit down. Yes. Look at this man. Look at this man wearing his American Eagle, his Nike, his Under Armour. Dude is a walking advertisement for, give it up for greed. That's right. Love it. I got really lucky with this one. Greed. Do you ever experience greed? That's rhetorical. Let me share what can happen with greed, right? You walk into American Eagle, and if you're me, you walk directly to the back of the store, to the clearance rack, because that's all you can afford. I know where that clearance rack is at American Eagle. But here's the thing, I don't always want what's on the clearance rack because it's old. It's from a year and a half ago, and people will know I got it off the clearance rack from a year and a half ago. I want the stuff in the front display window. That's the stuff I want. I want the $110 jeans. I want the $59 t-shirt. Because here's the thing, I don't really want it because I want to wear it. I will look stupid in skinny jeans, right? I would. Yeah, I would. I look better in my fishing pants than I do in skinny jeans. I want those clothes because other people will like me more. Or at least in my mind they will. They'll be like, ooh, Scott's got money. Look at that. But then they see that I'm wearing the same shorts that I had on 5 years ago in the fishing picture, by the way. These are the same shorts that I had on in that picture. And busted up old, yeah. Greed plays in. Now, that's an easy one. Here's what stinks about becoming an adult. I drive a Hyundai Elantra. I want a $45,000 truck. I want it so bad I can taste it sometimes. Do you guys know Jason Vaverka? He's one of our middle school leaders, Jason. Dude drives the sweetest Toyota you've ever seen. Mike Toussey has a man's truck. I got a little blue Hyundai Elantra. Hey, Mike, how are you? Hi, Scott. As he looks down at me from his truck. I have greed. I want a hot tub still. I want an 8-person hot tub with a little fountain that comes up that's all lit up that you can control the temperature. I want it. I want lights in I got my motorcycle, I know, but I want more. I do. I want more. And you know what I want to use my truck to do? I want to tow my boat behind my truck. I don't have a boat, but I want one. I do. I want a fishing ski because I want to fish and I want to ski and I want a tube. I do. I want to do it all. I want to put Ben and Mallory on a tube and turn really hard and watch them fly off. I want all of that. You know what greed does? Greed makes me want what isn't mine. And so you guys, here's the thing. I wasn't planning on teaching high school tonight. And so at the very end, I added 2 that I didn't put on the middle school list. So thank you very much, greed. Nice clothes. All right. Uh-oh. I'm not even going to play around with this one. Lust. I'm just going to walk away. In high school, it's easy to struggle with lust, right? Gentlemen, lust shows up in a couple of ways for you. One, you're walking down the hall and that girl in yoga pants, it's just hard not to look. Just admit it. No, don't admit it. Not in public. But it's true, and you know it, and all the guys are just looking at the floor right now. But it's true, and it's hard, and as a dude, lust is awful. But here's the other problem. If you want to look at naked people, you can do it right here anytime you want. It's the truth. Porn is 3 clicks away, right? Because you click private, and then you go, so no one catches you. We all know this. It's awful. Lust arises in you, and those desires lead you to sin. Ladies, you're not off the hook on this one. 32%, latest numbers. Barna, there's just a guy named George Barna. He does studies and compiles statistics. 32% of women between the ages of 15 and 40 look at porn on a daily basis. Women. Women. It's not just a dude thing anymore. This culture's winning. When lust shows up, it gives us desires for things that we aren't allowed to have. Because either one, you're not married to them, or two, you are married and you're married. That's that. Guys, lust is a real thing. Sorry we didn't get to have fun with you on this one. I get fired for that. So have a seat. Here we go, finally. And this is a very high school one, and I don't know you all at all, so we'll just pretend and have fun. We're going to call it chemical escape. Chemical escape. You blew that test. You had that physics test, and you studied for it, but you messed it up. You just did. And your parents screamed at you for it because you're an A student, and you got a C, and your dad doesn't keep his liquor locked up. And there's a little bit of vanilla rum in there. And you like vanilla rum because it doesn't taste so bad. It's not like scotch and whiskey that's just burning. So you drink a little vanilla rum because it goes down easy. And all of a sudden you feel a little better because that's what alcohol does short term. And your older brother, he's not a bad kid, but you know he's got some weed in his room. You know where it's at. He showed it to you. You've smoked it with him once or twice. So you have a little chemical escape, right? A lot of people do it, and I'm going to guess a lot of people in this room do it. It's sin, guys. Desire to escape. Nothing wrong with that desire. It's all how you deal with it. Are you getting hammered? Are you drinking? Are you smoking? And thank you very much, little Miss Chemical Escape. Guys, true story. I got a text, what's today, Sunday, on Friday afternoon from a very close friend of mine. His son has been causing him heartache and trouble over the last 2 years, mostly with marijuana. They've battled. He's having his kid pee in a cup a lot for him. Turns out that his ex-girlfriend's mom called my buddy and said, hey, your son is hooked on heroin. He's 17. Dude's hooked on heroin. Yesterday, a very close friend of mine had to drop his 17-year-old off at detox. In-house detox for a week. I'm trying to make sure I don't use his name. My heart breaks for this kid because I've known this kid since he was little, and I love this kid. He is sitting in a room right now shaking somewhere, sweating, and going through hell because of chemical escape. Guys, these desires lead to trouble. If James chapter 1 verse 14 tells us about how sin is much more like bait that is out there to make you grab it, here's what happens if you take a look at that bait a little too long. Verse 15 says this: these desires, they give birth to sinful actions. You guys with me? All right? And when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean you're going to fall over? No. It means you're going to kill your relationship with God. It means that if you walk away from your faith, you're going to die and go to hell if you believe what the Bible says. Guys, when we screw around with temptation, it always comes back to bite you. And so I don't like how heavy this talk is. I knew it was going to feel this way. And so I want to show you what happens when you give in to temptation finally. It comes from a TV show called Friends. It's kind of old now, but it's my favorite character, Joey. Joey's an idiot. Sit back and see what happens when Joey gives in to temptation. All right, that's silly, but guys, that's an easy way to look at temptation. He fought it, and then just gave it a little bit, just a little bit. And cause and effect took over, right? There was a cause, there was an effect, which led to a cause, which led to an effect. Guys, it's no different, and it plays out in Scripture. Take a look. You play with desire. You just play around with it, right? You don't run away from it. You don't stop it when you're in the desire phase, but you give in. And what is the effect? Well, you give birth to sinful actions. Your actions become unpleasing to God. You give in to whatever desire it is, and all of a sudden, dang it, I just sinned. You gave in to anger. Who said cussing? Ava. And you drop an F-bomb, right? It happens. It shouldn't, but it does. Another cause, right? You allow that to grow. So Ava just keeps on cussing. She's like, no big deal. Then one day she comes here and cusses at Pastor Rich. And it's over. Can you imagine someone cussing at Rich, by the way? I know, I wouldn't either. That's happened? Can you see them cussing at him, though? There are. True. I know. I can't, anyway. So, and again, cussing's a silly, goofy one, but we could use real examples, right? Oh, I almost said his name. We can use the kid who's in detox right now, right? It went from a desire to feel better and escape from the pain, and now dude could be looking at death in a couple of years. It won't surprise me if it won't surprise me if I end up preaching a funeral for my friend's son in the next 5 years. It just won't, because that's what happens with heroin, and we all know that, right? It breaks my heart. Guys, here's the thing. You have to stop this. And so you might be thinking, Scott, okay, this is a great little lesson on temptation. Thanks, man, but it's no help. Because I'm still struggling with desires, and those turn into temptations. What do I do? Well, here's what you do. You get to hear about something called Bible quizzing. Let me end with a story. In July of 1989, I was at Asbury University. There is this big, huge chapel at Asbury, and I was there. Why was I there? I was there for what was called the World Bible Quiz Finals. And I was a hardcore quizzer. What does that mean? Well, at the beginning of the school year in September of that year, I entered this program. It had a bunch of kids. There were probably 20, 25 kids from my church that were in it. And it was called Bible quizzing. And what you do is you would take 3 or 4 chapters a month out of the NIV Bible, and we would memorize it word for word. I mean, perfectly memorize it. 3, 4 chapters a month. And then you would go to what's called a quiz. I know it sounds so cheesy, but it was so awesome. So we would go to churches all around Ohio, and we would compete against other teams. And here's how it would work. You would have this little light sensor, and it would sit on your chair. It's about the size of a water bottle here. And so they were all attached by a wire, 15 of them. And those wires would go back to a little box that was sitting on a table in front of us. And at that table was a guy or a lady, and they were called it's so cheesy, the quiz master. The quiz master would ask us questions based on what we had memorized. And in order to answer those questions in a competitive event, you had to be the first one to what was called jump. Jump means that you came off of your little pad that you were sitting on that turned your light off at the computer, and the first person to come up off of it, their light would come on, and you would have an opportunity to answer the question. You're all judging me. I see it on your faces. Stop it. So, you wouldn't actually really sit on your chair. You would just go down far enough to turn the light sensor off. So, you could totally, just move the chair out. This is what you do, right? And so we actually had coaches, and our coaches would make us just sit like this for 20 minutes. Oh, it stunk after a while. Before tournaments, we weren't allowed to eat sugar for 2 weeks so that our metabolism would slow down. Stuff like that so we could concentrate. Anyway, we get to Asbury, and we are in the finals. Now, we're in a huge auditorium. There are 600 or 700 people in this audience, parents from all over the world, Africa, South America, Canada, United States, every state in America. We made it to the finals. It was amazing. And so at this point now, I have the entire book of Hebrews and the entire book of James memorized cold. No, I'm sorry, that was the next year. This year was 1st and 2nd Corinthians. So I had 1st and 2nd Corinthians just done. I knew them. And so That's the best story, at least for me. So we're in the finals, and a quiz had 20 questions in it. You earned 20 points for every correct answer that your team got, but if you gave an incorrect answer, it was minus 10. I don't remember the actual score, but I remember we were down by 10 on question number 20. And so in order for our team to take World Bible Quiz Finals, we had to get this question. And the way we would do it is there were different kinds of questions. This one happened to be what's called a finish the verse question, which means they would give you the first 5 words of any verse in 1st and 2nd Corinthians, and you had to nail it cold the first time. You couldn't mess up. But if you waited for all 5 words, you would never get a chance to answer. And so we were trained to listen for the first word, and then as soon as the first syllable of the second word was on the quizmaster's lips, we would jump. And then you would just have to read his lips and figure out what verse they wanted and then quote the verse. And so I was going for broke. Either we were going to lose by not jumping, or I was going to lose it for my team. I didn't care, so I was getting that question. And so the way it works is the quizmaster will say this. Question number 20 is a finish the verse question. Question number 20, question. And as they said that final word question, you knew that he was about to start. And so as he said that, question number 20, question. As soon as he got the out of his mouth for question, I jumped. And I caught him. He let a word and a syllable leak. And I got it. And so he was like, note. Number 3. And again, there are hundreds of people in the audience. And my heart is racing, and I'm like, no. And I was staring at his lips, and I can still see them in my mind. And I'm like, note. I know it. And all of a sudden, 1 Corinthians 10:13 came to my head, and I say, no temptation has seized you except what is common to man, but God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear, but when you aren't tempted, he will provide a way out so that you can stand up under it. Boom! And he looked at me, and he goes, that is correct. And the place erupted. I have goosebumps thinking about it. The place erupted. My team is like mauling me. I'm like, yeah! It was ridiculous. Now, yay, Scott. Thanks for walking us all down memory lane. Apparently, the late 80s were weird. Guys, I don't tell you that story because we won some championship cheesy Bible quiz thing. I tell you it because I think to this day that God knew I was going to be in ministry and I would struggle with temptation like any pastor does. And he knew that he had to take one verse. If he could take one verse and burn it into my memory, it would be the verse from the end of the finals at World Bible Quiz. Guys, I'll never forget this verse because we won the championship with it. But God has brought it back to me time and again. And so when I'm sitting at home and I've just had an argument with my wife and I'm ticked at her, and it happens, and I'm tempted to look at something on my phone that I shouldn't look at, but I'm tempted because I feel lonely and I feel empty and I'm ticked at my wife, God brings this back to me. Scott, no temptation has seized you except what is common to man. Okay, what does that mean? It means that everybody struggles with the same stuff. What you struggle with is no different than what the person sitting next to you struggles with. You're not unique. Satan likes to come along and be like, Ava, you're a freak because you're the only one that struggles with this. And that's not true. No. Guys, Jesus was tempted in every way just as we are. And so no temptation has seized you except what is common to man. But God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. He won't. He promised you. And so the next time Kleinschmidt is tempted to, I don't know her well enough to know what she struggles with. The next time she's tempted to do whatever her desires lead her into that would be sinful, God has promised us, no, Kleinschmidt, you can stand up under it. And so can Billy, and so can Ariana, and we can go right around and put all of your names in there. Laura, she can stand up under it. Because what does God promise? He is going to provide you a way out of it. He will. He will provide you a way out. Now, that might embarrass you, taking that way out. I don't know. There have been times that I've struggled with strong temptation to look at stuff I shouldn't on my phone. So I've handed my phone to Mike Kleinschmidt. Not, that would be weird. Hey, keep my phone for me. I'm struggling with temptation. Freshman? No, I give it to her big brother, who is my good friend. And I'm like, Mike, I'm struggling right now. I can't have my phone because I might look at something and hurt my marriage. And I might hurt my relationship with my wife. And I won't do that. So, dude, will you take my phone for a day? Let me know if anything important comes up, like text my wife. And my wife knows it, by the way. I'm straight up with her. I'm like, hey, I'm just struggling, so Mike has my phone. She's like, okay. Thank you for loving me, is her response. I don't know. It's embarrassing. I wish I didn't have to hand my phone away, but I'm willing to. If Vicodin was sold over the counter, I'd be in trouble because I have a strong desire for Vicodin. I love it. I've had it for injuries. I've had a million injuries. You guys were here last week. You saw my list of injuries. Vicodin makes me feel wonderful. I wish I could have it all the time. I have a desire for it. I won't take it. I won't give in because it's addictive and it'll land me in detox right next to that 17-year-old kid that I love. So I fight it. And I got stuff I fight. And if you were honest, you do too. And guys, I don't know what you struggle with. I don't know if it's an eating disorder. And so you have to run away from certain things that trigger that. I don't know if it's anger. And so you have to, when you're building, when you're starting to boil on the inside, right? You know when you got to walk away. And this is how we're going to wrap it up. Sometimes you got to put a stop sign and end that cycle of cause and effect. You got to know what the effect is. I know some of you in this room really well. I know a couple of you harm yourselves because it's the only way you can deal with the pain. And when you get in that point, you have to stop it because if you give in, you're going to go nuts. And it's going to feel amazing and awful all at the same time. I don't know what it is you deal with, but in a room full of high schoolers, I know it's real. And that is why we have small groups here. That is why we invite you to get into a group with people your own age and gender who understand you, with adult leaders that totally care about you, and give you a chance to talk about how this applies to you in the year 2017 as a high school student.